What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about the series that I started, I want to say last month or the month before, which was the Harper L Woods The Cursed series. First off, I was under the impression that this third book was going to be the final in the series. I have now understood that there's actually going to be 6 books total in the series, but I did end up picking up the third book, The Damned, and I did have a chance to read it, and I just wanted to go through it and review it with you guys. So without further ado, let's jump into the video. It's reading time here at JBay's Corner. For those of you that are new here, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jaya. I put out bookish related content every Wednesday and Sunday, and I love all things fiction, really. Every once in a while, we'll read nonfiction on this channel, some memoirs, things like that, but typically it is the fiction addiction that shows its head in this video. If that sounds like it's up your alley, you're definitely in the right place, and I am so excited to have you join us. If you are returning, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for helping me build this bookish community. It means the absolute world to me, and I love sharing all things books with you guys. So that being said, let's jump into the books. So the first book that I wanted to talk about is the Cursed, no, that's the second book. Sorry, just kidding. I wanted to talk about the Coven, which is the first book in the series. Now, book 1 and book 2 are following 2 main characters, which is going to be our main female lead, Willow, who is a very powerful green witch, meaning that she basically has within her the power to call to plants and all of God's green creation. And she also happens to be a black, which is a secret, and it is a necromancy witch, also known as House Hecate. She is one of a kind. She's the only one that is a witch holding powers of 2 different people. The book is also told from the perspective of Alaric Grayson, who happens to be our main male lead, who also happens to be a vessel. A vessel is basically a creature that is very much similar to a vampire. They do require blood leaching from the witches in order to survive and things like that. But essentially, they are believed to be creatures that look like humans and operate as humans. However, they host the soul of a devil within them. They are incapable of loving completely or caring completely about any person because their actual body, their actual soul is still trapped down in hell. And so it's a very intriguing concept. They can still feel a lot of very intense emotions, but they cannot necessarily love. So within this first book, we have the push and pull between Willow, who believes in the fact that the Coven is completely corrupt, which consists of 13 major witch families that she herself is a descendant of, but she and her father are basically creating a plan to take the Coven down. Their goal is to remove all the corruption and basically restore balance to the world of witches. She also intrinsically hate what the vessels stand for. She doesn't like them. She feels like they're an abomination. And so her goal is essentially to rid the world of these vessels. Meanwhile, Alaric has his own agenda, and he is also the headmaster of the school at which all the young witchlings come to study. His goal is to basically recruit Willow and bring her back to the Coven in order to fulfill his role of supporting the Coven and also help reestablish and restore the importance and urgency of power through the legacies of these witches within the Coven, which is slowly losing its power. Inadvertently, both of them have their own secret agendas, and they end up intertwined. It's a very fun, fast-paced book. It definitely is more saucy, more spicy. I would say this is probably a solid 3.5 to 4 chili spice book. There is a lot of scenes like that within this series. This book itself, not so much, but definitely is present throughout the series. Basically, at the end of the Coven, we jump into the Cursed, which is still dealing with Willow and Alaric and their basic little enemies to lover relationship that's happening, as well as them trying to find balance within keeping the Coven alive while also punishing those who are corrupt. And Willow finds herself in a more powerful role within the portion of the Cursed. Now, these 2 books were absolutely phenomenal to me. I ended up reading both of these in less than 48 hours. I absolutely adored these books. One thing I did want to mention about this series is that within the series itself, there are references to other important houses. So I had mentioned before that our main female character in the first two books, Willow, actually was a green witch as well as a black witch. This does actually have a certain amount of role within this series because each of the different witches basically pull power from different things. So for example, crystal witches who are known as whites, we have cosmic witches who are known as purples. So all these different groups of witches pull their power from different sources in order to replenish their magic, and their role is to basically be symbiotic with the earth. So essentially every bit of power that they take, they also give something back to the source from which they have taken that power. Earth witches are the greens, who is what Willow was. And then we also have air witches, who are the grays, water witches, who are the blues. And then we also have yellow witches, who are known as fire witches, and the necromancy witches, who are the blacks. And last but not least, we have the reds, who basically pull power from desire or love or sex, like that kind of energy, that kind of power, which is where this third book ends up taking place. So one thing I did want to mention, I was under the impression that the final book in this series was going to come out and it was the story of Willow and Alaric. I was very wrong. There will be more books within this series, and it sounds like it will be focused on different characters with each book that we receive. So this particular book, and I'm assuming the next book as well, based on the way that this one ended, is actually following two new characters who are Margot and Beelzebub, who are introduced in the previous book. So for a little bit of clarity, Margot happens to be another witch in the same year as Willow. She is the daughter of the red lineage, and so therefore she is considered one of the legacy children, and she is known to have some of the most power when it comes to red witches within her generation, and she is therefore almost believed to be the successor. So she will eventually take her place on the Coven throne when her aunt, who is the current red witch who is on the Coven on the female side, steps down. So she is essentially supposed to be drawing power from love and sex and all these other things. However, Margot herself has gone through something very traumatic when she was younger, which actually makes her hide from her own powers and her own strengths and her own beliefs because she doesn't want to unwittingly take away anyone's will. Also, the red witches do have the power of sirens, so if they sing, anyone who hears them sing is enraptured and captured underneath their spell. So she tries to avoid singing at all cost. However, in an inadvertent moment, when she was just taking a moment for herself in the garden, she ends up singing, and she catches the attention of Beelzebub, who happens to be the second lieutenant of the Lucifer, if you will. And so because of that, Margot has now ensnared Beelzebub, and they are unwittingly rotating around each other. Throughout the course of the first book, we end up seeing multiple events that do occur that lead to these two characters ending up in hell. Now, The Damned basically picks up from where the second book in the series left off, which is where Beelzebub and Margot have now fallen into hell and have to find their way to the center of hell in order to communicate with Lucifer to figure out how to get Margot back to the land of living, and also to understand exactly what happened after the final battle that occurred in the second book. And throughout the course of the book, we kind of get to see perspectives from both Margot and Beelzebub. We see her feeling a little bit more comfortable with him throughout each of the different chapters, learning to appreciate herself, her own gift, seeing her own power, understanding that she's not corrupt in and of herself, and also finding a way to break a bind that has been placed on her, which limits her ability to connect to the source and her magical powers. Throughout the course of the beginning of this book, we do get a little bit of information when Margot is still on the university campus, and she does realize a lot of betrayals that were stacked up against her from each of her different family members, and she has to kind of deal with the aftermaths and the shocks of that as well. And then we basically get to follow these two characters as they travel through the 7 circles of hell. That particular part of the book, the part where they're actually journeying through the circles of hell, reminds me very much of Dante's Inferno. So if you've read Dante's Inferno or you liked those kind of books when we were still enjoying them back in school, God, I miss reading those books at school, that would be very reminiscent of this. We kind of get to see each of the different sins owned by each of the different archdemons that are basically stationed within that sin and gain power from that circle and are basically tasked with continuing to supply the lost souls to those circles and giving favor or not giving favor to people according to the level of their sins. It's very interesting to watch Beelzebub go through this process as well as he slowly creates different levels of animosity with the other archdemons that are there. You can also see that there's no love lost between all of these archdemons. They all kind of have their own agendas. They all kind of hate each other. There's no real like friendships or relationships that are existing within the demon world. And you can see how all of them only have loyalty to one person, who is Lucifer, and their goal is to essentially become as close to him as possible. We also get to see the romance that starts to develop between Beelzebub and Margot as well, which is a very forbidden love. So again, very much enemies to lovers in this as well, which is kind of cute and kind of sweet to see happening. We also get to see Margot, again, embracing herself, her powers, her energy, and kind of growing as a character, which was really interesting to see. Overall, I think this book was, however, a little bit duller for me than the other two books. I will say the very last chapter of this book kind of grabbed me, so I'm curious enough to want to finish the second book that comes out with these two characters. However, my understanding is that there's going to be 6 books in total, and the books are going to be told from different perspectives of 3 different character sets, and I think they were hinted at in the beginning of the first books. It is a little interesting to me though, because the way the Coven ended, the way the Cursed ended, which is the second book in the series, kind of leaves it open-ended where a lot of things could potentially happen. So I really hope we do get to see more perspectives from Willow and Alaric, who so far are definitely my favorite characters. I do like Margot. I do like Beelzebub. It's not that I don't like those two characters. It's just that I didn't feel as much towards those two characters as I did for the other two. And again, I did physically read this book completely. I did not listen to any audio. I just kind of sat down with the book and started reading it in the hopes that it would suck me in the way the other two books did. Unfortunately, it did not. However, that being said, I do think I'm going to continue the series because, as I mentioned, that last chapter really did suck me in. So I'm very excited for that. But otherwise, I would say the book overall was a fun, fast-paced, decent read. It's enjoyable. It's perfect for the season. Very appropriate for October. And yeah, that's all I have to say about this third book in the series. So hopefully that gave you guys a little bit more of an idea on this series. I absolutely adored the first 2 books. I was very much excited for the third book. As I mentioned, the third book was a little bit of a letdown, but it wasn't so much the fact that I didn't enjoy the third book as much as it was that I was hoping it was the other characters. Also, Margot's story, Margot's trauma, Margot's like feelings, all those things. While it was very interesting to read, I think it could have been fleshed out a little bit more, but overall I think the book was decently done, and I do think I'm going to get a lot of the things that I was looking for with these two characters in this book in the next book based on the way that it's been set up. So I think I'm going to see a lot more emotional vulnerability between the two characters, a lot more growth in terms of both characters, because this first book was kind of that beginning of that journey, and they kind of paused right at the part where we were starting to see that growth and that buildup starting to occur. So I'm hoping that this next book will really pull that energy back in. But overall, I think Harper L Woods did a phenomenal job with this series so far, and I'm very much excited to read the rest of them. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, I do really appreciate it. For those of you, again, that are new here, if you like bookish related content, I basically talk all things fiction on this channel. I will say October's reads definitely leaned more towards October vibes, so lots of fantasy, vampires, like that kind of thing. But there will be newer books coming up soon in November as well, and I would love to have you guys back. So if you are interested in continuing to be a part of the community, definitely consider hitting that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos. For those of you that are returning, again, I can't thank you enough for being here. It means the absolute world to me. I couldn't be building this community and sharing my passion for books with people if they didn't want to sit here and chat with me and listen. Please remember to leave comments below. Let me know if you've read the series. Let me know if you want to read the series. Let me know if there's any series like this that you guys would recommend, because I will definitely pick them up and read them, and I love reading those comments with you. This is really meant to be more of an open forum, so I would love to hear more from you guys. But otherwise, I have nothing else, so I'll leave you with, I hope wherever you are, whether it's morning, evening, or night, you're having a wonderful, wonderful day, and I hope that you are surrounded by all the love in the world, and you guys are getting plenty of time to relax and read, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye, guys.